Today I was asked to talk about karma and karmic cleanses. Do they really work, and what does that mean? It looks like at this day and age, most of the people are just speculating and living off other people's ignorance, pushing them kind of quick fixes, quick enlightenment, quick spirituality. In this life, there are no quick fixes. You can fool other people, your peers, ignorant people, but you cannot fool consciousness and the flow of life. So it's very important to understand that. Now, most of the people still have no idea what karma means. And they think that karma is something that is separate from them. This ignorance is born out of lack of not only perception of self in a natural way, but also due to very, very strong victimization and very strong kind of notion of being kind of a separate unit in this universe or in this reality. So self is really corrupt. The self becomes corrupt when it's victimized. When it's victimized, it perceives the world separate from itself. All our psychological, psychiatrical, mental disorders, emotional disorders, they all link to the victimized states to different degrees, of course, with different people. It plays out differently. But the root is one and the same for all. But that is neither karma. So in order to understand what karma is, we need to really understand what spirituality, spiritual path. And it is so much more simple than many people imagine. Yet the complexity of our minds lead us to ignorance, leads us to the search of quick fixes, teachings which give us a meaning, create us any kind of a meaning. So at the moment, there are so many people that give you all kinds of predictions, all kinds of karmic cleanses, and yet these people are themselves absolutely obliterate about the idea of, or the actual understanding what karma is. How you exist, who you are, will give you, or the realization of these things will give you really an idea of what that is. But before that, you can just speculate and play games, spiritual games, occult games, thinking that you are something else than a karma. Now in Siddha teaching, karma means your body. That's why in the teaching, the body is so important. The body is crucial because you know of your karma through your body. You are not the body. That's the thing. So you have to have that right perspective of your own existence and your own self in order to have a right perspective on what karma is. Without that, how will you ever know? So you have to awake to your natural being. What does it mean as well? There are lots of confusions. It means your consciousness has to turn within and perceive itself. It perceives itself in the ultimate. You perceive the reason for your karma. You perceive the subtle self. That subtle self, that spiritual subtle self, due to certain experiences in the past, due to various incarnations in different ways, in different places, due to different experiences, the subtle body carries distortions, inclinations, impressions in itself. And so that is the karma. That becomes the karma because that subtle materializes the body. The body itself is not autonomous. The physical body is just the result of actual karmic imprint in the consciousness. So it is the consciousness that requires refinement because it is polluted at the moment. So karma is the body because it gives you the idea, because only the body can give you the notion of pain, the notion of pleasure, the notion of any kind of notion. And it doesn't really matter, because it doesn't really matter what kind of experiences you have, because you interpret them each moment. For you, there is only negative and positive and something in between. But these interpretations are subjective to each individual's consciousness. And usually pain indicates something negative and pleasure indicates something positive. But spirituality, spiritual evolution have nothing to do with accumulation of anything positive nor anything negative, because it's transcendence. It's going through neutrality into transcendence, where you just perceive. Any phenomena can be perceived and seen from both of these positive or negative notions. Wise men detangle their karmic impressions in the subtle being, in their mind, so they cultivate the purity, inner purity. Inner purity means that that judge that constantly controls, observes, and watches one's being, and constantly, after anything has been done or said, the judge is saying, oh, you did it well, you didn't do it well, or what people would think. So that judge is no longer there. That karmic judge is no longer there. So the process of karmic cleanse and karmic dissolution in the form of all these bizarre practices that people offer you online and try to rip you off monetarily is not going to clean your karma. Because your karma, if your karma is clean, it means that your subtle body, first of all, you become awake to your subtle being. Your subtle body will start glowing because you've let go of everything within it. You've understood that all your suppressions, distortions, inclinations, false identities, false interpretations of life, false concepts are no longer valid. They fall off. You shed them off. So when this happens, the essence of the actual self, the subtle self, becomes effulgent. It emanates through the body. And it slowly starts enlightening the body. That means the dissolution of karma has begun, which, if properly understood, will result eventually in the dissolution of the physical body. The dissolution of karma, complete dissolution of karma, means that there is complete dissolution of the body. And that's what some Siddha practitioners in different traditions, we will not name them, but in various Siddha traditions, these practitioners who achieved the true realization of the process of karmic clearing, you may say, or realization of what the spiritual path is, they came back to this understanding. They reactivated the mechanism of awakening to the subtle being, which is the reason for the body, and refining the subtle being, which is the reason for the body and current bodily condition. And not only bodily, it's like current physical, which includes the physical body and mind. So this gross emotional reality, as I mentioned it in my book. So the reason for that is the subtle being. If you are not awake to the subtle being and you do not perceive the reason for your body, you're still ignorant and locked in this box, the box of the body, which remains ignorant of its actual reason for existence. Now, on that, the evolution doesn't stop, but that's the current kind of a point to which we have to ascend or evolve to. So If the subtle body is not refined, it means that there are internal compulsions, internal impulses that push the body to act in a certain way, to accumulate certain experience, to judge that experience, and so on. So once we turn within and we perceive that we are the subtle essence, we perceive the light not as a hallucination, but we perceive that radiation within as an equanimous, blissful being. Through that realization, we are able to see all that which doesn't allow us to constantly remain in that, our natural being, or our natural state of being. So we start the process of refinement. Through this tedious process of refinement, through self-observation, through contemplation and absorption. So absorption here is just another synonym for meditation, samadhi, equanimity. There are just different depths of absorption, but still, if one is able to go into absorption, through absorption into one's natural being, one is burning or dissolving these karmic impressions. So these meditation and samadhi, or so whatever the name is, or whatever people choose for commercial purposes to use, becomes a tool for self-refinement. And eventually, when self-refinement happens, there is also transformation. So the transformation of the subtle means that all these impediments in the energy body dissolve. So there is a proper conscious energy circulation in the body, in the subtle body. So it becomes more autonomous, it becomes free. Once it becomes free from all these distortions and impediments, the physical body, which is the karma, starts refining too. So first it starts refining. It refines from the negative, then it refines from the positive, and it becomes just like a vessel for which the time stops, and there is just emanation. With further process, slowly, the body, after the radiation level, or after the subtle body evolved to that degree that it no longer can stay in the physical body, it starts the dissolution process. Because the spiritual radiation, the evolutionary power of the self, has reached the point where the body can no longer maintain its consistency. So it starts, first it rejuvenates and stops and evolves and emanates. After that, it, by will, it will be gradually, or at the right point, dissolved. It will be dissolved. Dissolved, like in many practices, people who witness it say, in thin air. So only either nothing is left, and also the physical body will acquire the qualities of the light body because the emanation will be so strong. So it will appear still as a physical body and will be visible for this gross emotional physical reality, but it will acquire all the qualities of the light body. And so these kind of masters can leave certain imprints on the stone, can sometimes emanate more power, which is registered as just light on the camera, for instance, or some other things. But there are other aspects. Plus, morally, the person will not have any kind of a morale as per the society or religion. They'll have natural morale, which is based on spiritual intelligence and equanimous being, where the non-violence and all these virtues are but natural. Because when one is integrated, when the essence or the reason for the body is integrated with the body starts emanating, the body becomes peaceful, supple, vibrant, glowing. And so after this process is there for a while, and there is a certain, let's say, karmic purpose of that being is fulfilled on this planet. So they, through the power of their emanation, spiritual radiation, will dissolve their physical body through the power of their true self, which is the subtle light body. And will continue radiation, will continue evolution only in the subtle then. So they will continue that evolution in the subtle, but the physical karma will be dissolved. So that this dissolution of the karmic body is a dissolution of karma. So now let's go back to the charlatans who are trying to offer you, for whatever money, all kinds of pujas and all kinds of rituals and stuff to quick fix your situations. What you are living in this day and age is that which is a result of your previous experiences, which is imprinted in your subtle essence, your consciousness, individual consciousness here in me. So in order to really clear your karma, or in order for any ritual to work, people have to really understand that and be actual practitioners, or have knowledge about that, practical knowledge, not just theoretical or mantra, shloka knowledge. So when someone tries to resolve karmic issues, there are mostly occult entanglements, ancestral entanglements, occult entanglements. So the subtle body is not only impure on its own, but it contains all kinds of openings through the programs of victimization and corrupt sense of self, the openings with the occult world. This occult, or sub-illusion as I call it, is the world of different kind of beings or entities or fields. You may put the word field if you want scientific understanding. So the field of different emotional thought clusters, which attach to the subtle body and impede its function and feed off that subtle body's life energy. And since that subtle body is burdened, and plus it's not awakened to itself, it's not reconnected with the ultimate, it has limited source of energy and thus limited life. The more it corrupts itself through life, the less the life will be in that subtle being, and the less life or the lifespan will be for the body. So most of the people are hubs of these sort of clusters which attach to their subtle beings. Through their victimized states, they create openings by sending negative emotions, jealousy because something is not working, by opposing themselves to the world as victims. They create these openings and they kind of destroy their energy structure, subtle body, which drains them, makes their body decay because the body no longer receives that subtle energy, the pure energy. And thus the aging process starts, or not only aging, but also the process of disease and decay, because all of these are interconnected. So the pain is the indication of problems in the subtle body. Most of the pain which is magically induced is induced from the subtle body. So there is a certain opening, a certain issue there in the subtle body. So our body is our karma and the result of the subtle. So the impressions are in the subtle. That's why karma exists, body exists. If there were no impediments in the subtle, the physical would be just emanating that vibration. And now you may wonder about all these people who are giving transmissions and they say, oh, we are having some energy. They do not give, they are not the being who transmits. They connect to some medium, some other type of entities who do the job through their body. So sometimes people believe that they transmit something, and they transmit their emotions, they transmit their spiritual level of ignorance. So there are different types of transmission. I've already mentioned about it in some other videos, but you always have to wonder who transmits. If the person is pure, their main qualities will be purity, absolute freedom, sovereignty, autonomy, and selflessness. If that emanation is not perceived, then such transmissions are questionable. It doesn't mean that you have to start looking for any transmission. The point of this video is to point out that if you want to really understand how to clear your karma, you have to start from turning within and refining your inner self by observing all the waves which arise in your inner self, and all those waves which push you to control, push you to be jealous, push you to feel irritation. So all these irritations and jealousy and negative or positive emotions arise in the subtle body. They drain you, whether physical or positive, whether negative or positive emotions. They drain the subtle body. Once they drain the subtle body, the physical body manifests it. So the subtle manifests all its impediments through the physical. And it's very important. If someone afflicts you in any form, they will afflict you through the subtle, so that subtle will be manifested through the physical. And if someone is going through some kind of occult affliction, so some imposes jealousy or negative energy or sends negative waves towards the other being, these negative waves will affect the subtle being, the mind, the choices, the feeling, which eventually will creep into the physical and will create physical pains, the pains that doctors would not be able to resolve. Through use of drugs, marijuana, any other psychedelic drugs, you create an opening to different kind of thought and emotional clusters to attach to your being. So many times people report paranoia and other kind of feelings, negative feelings, or some kind of presence, because the world is not what we see. It appears to be very clear for the physical mind, but it is not, because we don't realize that this physical body is the result of that which is behind the scenes. So if you change or shift your perspective, you will realize that there's no need to waste your money on quick fixes and cleaning your karma, but roll up your sleeves, look within, turn within, realize how you're victimized by yourself, how you created all these self-punishment programs, self-condemnation programs, and how they work through you, how they work through your relatives, how you pick those vibrations from others and yet become victimized. Whatever happens around you, let it happen. Your reactions, all those waves that arise with you, will define the status of your karma, your evolutionary status. your body will define the evolutionary status. If the body is drained, diseased, what kind of spirituality are you talking about? Are you trying to reach the stars by stumbling at each rock? So fix your life, discipline your life. Try to understand what you could do as a responsible being, not as a victim of this world, but as a responsible being, to refine yourself, at least to some degree. And that will be the first step on your evolution and towards your karmic cleanse.